Okay, welcome to another episode of Prescribing Lifestyle. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Today, I have Julia Rudakova from Oxygen Revolution. Welcome to the podcast, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a bit interesting because this is the first time I'm doing a live podcast in Melbourne in my clinic. And it's a little bit different. It's not on Zoom, it's not virtual, and we're doing it in person.
It is different. This is my first time too, so.
So it's amazing how you meet people online. How I met Julia was I was sending out some invitations on LinkedIn and I searched functional breathing and I came up with Julia, who's a naturopath. She works local, and then we met up for lunch about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and she has so much in common with me. We talk about breathing, we talk about eating real food, low carb, and she does very much similar things to me.
Thank you. Yes, it was kind of a bit of fresh air to hear from a local GP who does lifestyle changes and low carb and breath work. I'm like, oh my God, I want to meet that person.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah, tell me a bit about your background, Julia. How did you get into this space?
How I got into the space, you mean naturopathy or breath work?
What do you want to start?
So naturopathy, that was a personal journey over decades. After giving birth to my first son, I realized that conventional medicine wasn't working for me as I wanted it to work, and I slowly explored different things, mostly for my family, for myself. Never thought I would be working in the field because I used to be a teacher in the past. But if you remember, doctor, the root of the word is docere in Latin, which means to teach. Yeah, so doctor is a teacher. And so a teacher is always a teacher, so I just teach a different subject now.
That's
and yes, then I moved countries, and so I did do different things like aromatherapy, homeopathy. I collected all those certifications, but I just did it for myself, just because I loved it so much. And I saw the results, and then we moved countries, and then I did naturopathy studies here in Australian college and got my degree here. So that's how I got into the field. And with the functional breathing, being from Russia, I was exposed to potato. So we all heard of that. I grew up with breathe through the nose, And so that's what I mentioned in my book that's going to come out in July. That's kind of, cultural conditioning. It was not good to sit at the table and open your mouth apart from eating,
Okay.
So you chew with your mouth closed, you have your mouth closed unless you speak or sing. And there was something that I grew up with, and without even knowing the science behind this.
So your mum would remind you to breathe through your nose?
Most parents, like of my friends, I remember they would do same remarks. And
wow.
And that was very interesting. I thought, now retrospectively, thinking back about those things that I heard as a child, kind of shaped me up a little bit. And I did have a lot of respiratory health issues myself when I was growing up.
Okay.
Whether it was the climate, whether it was psychosomatics, growing up with certain family issues, and so I had adenoids and tonsils enlarged and all the surgeries that followed, and chronic bronchitis for years and years and years, way into my 20s and mid-20s, and that's when when my oldest son was born, and I started looking into all the natural approaches, because the other ones, they did fix things, but they would come back and again and again and again. So that's when I looked into the diet.
Oh wow.
And reducing certain things that create inflammation, right? Not so much low carb at that stage, as you like, but it was a good start. It was a good starting point. And we all move, in stages.
Exactly.
So that's how it all came about. And then my younger son was born, and we moved houses, and we moved to the Dandenong Ranges, and it was very different environment. And again, could be psychosomatic because a lot was going on in the family.
Oh, okay.
And he developed asthma.
Yeah.
He developed asthma, and Julia started looking into that again because I had resolved my respiratory issues a long time ago and never needed that anymore. And so I remembered potato, right? So I looked into that, and I got certified a bit later, not for my son, but that's the story. That's how it comes about. So
That's
I'm
amazing.
a researcher, and I do things often for my kids first, or my clients, and then I start digging deeper. And if
That's
I
great.
feel drawn to that, I will go and get certified.
Yeah, that's amazing. Would your son listen to your advice about breathing?
All right, so yes, he was very young when he developed asthma, and we did other things that, if you want to ask, you can ask, but we did very little in terms of exercises because he was just 3. He's quite good at listening. He's always been, he's a Virgo, and he's that, pays attention to details. But, a child is a child.
Yeah.
And later, so we kind of fixed him, right?
With breathing?
With other modalities.
Oh, okay.
And then he started school. And he had been asthma free for a good 5 years before his first school camp in grade 3.
Okay.
So, and I volunteered as a parent helper there. And so day 2, I think they went, it was in the Mornington Peninsula, I think, in Portsea, somewhere there. And the weather was great, and they went for a fishing trip to the beach, and I was there with the group where my son was, and everything was well. And then we started walking back to the camp. It was late afternoon, and I could see that my son was started going white. The lips went white, and he was like really, really struggling and wheezing. I'm like, okay. And we had been asthma free, right? No ventilating, no nothing. I didn't bring anything with me because I thought we are good. And so we sat down. They left us behind because no one could help. And I'm like, just go and maybe call for help, maybe send someone with Ventolin or something, just to help open the airways. So we sat down. I already knew about potato. I was certified by then, and we started doing the small breath holds.
Well, lucky
remember
you were
small breath holds?
because it was my son. I don't go to the camps with the son. I send them to with the school. I don't volunteer.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So that was very lucky. And so we sat down on a log. I remember just behind the bushes near the beach. Those shrubberies. And so we sat down, started doing small breath holds, which is 5-second hold. 10-second, you breathe, whatever comes, right? Try to do it through the nose as much as possible. He was good at that. He listened. 2-3 minutes in, I didn't have my watch. He started to get color in his cheeks.
Oh, good.
And the breathing became much, much better, much, much easier. Still not quite there, not perfect, but he could walk.
Oh, good.
So we walked normally back to the camp. And that was that, and he had to go home with his dad though, because he still needed to recover from that, so he was unable to participate in the evening activities.
Did you need to go to hospital then?
No, there was no hospital, but I did send them back, and they recovered with other things.
Well, that's great.
Yes, but this is like, I call it breathing Ventolin. Small breath holds. It is so, and with Ventolin, that you never know how much is left, right? Statistically, it does help in like 40%, but even then, you never know, right? And what if it runs out and you need it? So that you can buy time while you're waiting for help. You can buy time knowing those tools. So teaching people about that, and that's why I loved what you do. You're a doctor, and you can give that tool to people. So that if they run out of their medication, they can have that time while they're waiting for help.
That
It's
is
so
great.
important. It's huge because it is life-threatening condition. Breathing is the first thing that keeps us alive, right?
Yeah. But if you know how to slow down your breathing,
Yes.
that's amazing.
Focus on the nasal breathing, slow down a little bit, breath holds, accumulate that carbon dioxide, that nitric oxide,
Yes.
to open things up there,
That's it.
to lubricate, nurture everything, the pathways.
That's a great story.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's first-hand experience.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I know that it works firsthand. So that's brilliant.
That's great. And tell us a bit about the Oxygen Revolution program. You've been practicing functional breathing much longer than me. I've only just started learning in the last year. So tell us what you do in the Oxygen Revolution program.
That came about in 2020. Lockdown year. So before that, I had been practicing face-to-face. The majority of my Buteyko work was for Braceless Choice. They are a dental practice here in Ringwood in Melbourne, and they help kids with malocclusions with crooked teeth without braces. Braceless Choice, hence the name. So I was part of their program was Buteyko breathing to help kids breathe through the nose, because then the tongue sits on the roof of the mouth and supports the teeth. And once they're done with their therapy, you have that insurance that teeth will stay straight. So I was doing that work for them and doing my naturopathic practice as well. And in 2020, no face-to-face work, and a lot of people with respiratory issues, right?
Oh, right,
And that's how I'm like, okay, that's the idea of the Oxygen Revolution functional breathing program. It's 4 sessions, and it can be online, it can be face-to-face now, but online works just as well. So the clients that I get now is not necessarily those who need support with asthma or any respiratory stuff. It could be anxiety, it could be any breathing issues like bronchitis, chronic, that can't be resolved with medication, or so you know that it's a good help. Whatever you prescribe, whether it's herbs, whether it's whatever medication, right? You need to do some background work. You can't just rely on the substances, because that's a band-aid solution,
that's
right?
And everyone can improve on their breathing. They've all got room for improvement.
So that's how, I just started about the clients. So there can be clients who had researched breath work, who had done some reading, who researched Patrick McKeown, and he's so brilliant, so much free information out there, videos, books that he put out there, like articles, so much.
That's
he's
where I learned
so generous.
a lot of it from.
Me too. And it's all out there, really. Right? You would think, like, why would even create that sort of thing? Who would come and pay for that? Pay to be taught to breathe. But the thing is that we're all very different. And showing people what exactly needs to be addressed, why they stall and don't get more results. It could be allergies. And then we do talk, so as a naturopath, it's not only about breathing. I do address other things. I do say that if there is inflammation, it's going to be very, very hard to achieve those results with functional breathing. You can do all the exercises. And then a lot of people are so health conscious, and they do gym work like 5 days a week. And if they go to the gym and breathe through the mouth there all the time,
then it doesn't work.
Then they just create more and more of that inflammation.
That's right.
And more carbon dioxide resistance.
That's it. They breathe off the carbon dioxide too much.
They just dump it all the time.
That's right.
Lactic acid buildup, all the pains and all the aches associated with the workouts, right?
That's it. Probably lots of carbs as well if you're going to the gym a lot.
But even if that is addressed, like if, assuming that nutrition is perfect, even doing that mouth breathing during workouts, not knowing about how damaging it can be. So, it's kind of a personalized approach. So that program is for people who really want to get to the bottom of things. And I always refer to the rule of 3.
Oh, okay, yeah. What's
Have
that?
you heard of the rule of three?
No.
So, you know how on average a human being can survive without food for 3 weeks,
Okay.
without water for 3 days, and without breathing 3 minutes tops,
Oh, okay, yeah.
before some sort of damage starts
Yeah.
happening. So, yes, and that's why breath work is fundamental for our healing, for our health. It's connected to the limbic part of the brain, to our emotions. And our emotions do rule physiology, right? So it's not like only compartmentalizing, you know, this organ, this tissue, this system, you know. We can do that healing, you know, but it's part of the whole.
That's
the
it.
physical and the emotional, it is connected.
That's absolutely amazing. Tell us some examples of what good results that you've had with your patients from breathing.
I had so many different cases. So asthma, you know, definitely relief from asthma. It depends on, again, it depends on the emotions. Emotions are involved because there's so much fear around asthma and not being able to breathe, and breathing being this basic primal function. So if there is trust and if there is understanding, and that's why this one-on-one work, because there is more time to explain, more time to go. So when you have a person sit in front of you and they do the breathing and you ask for feedback, what do you feel? What comes up? Instead of them doing it at home, it's too hard, I'm freaking out, I can't do that. So and we go through that and I explain why this is happening, the physiology, the psychology of things, and it's easier for them to trust the body, to go through that process of retraining your breathing, right? And we do that. So asthma to the point of giving up medication.
Get rid of all the steroid inhalers and Ventolin. Well-controlled asthma.
Or really, really dialing it down to, you know, some cases when it's absolutely necessary. Like with my son, when, you know, once in a while, once in a blue moon, they still keep their Ventolin in their handbags, just an insurance sort of thing, but they don't use it as much anymore. Because they know they can help themselves, and they correct that chemistry, that background chemistry. And I had people with emphysema.
Okay, wow.
So yes, again, not completely reversing. So there was mostly people in their 60s that had 70s even.
From the smoking damage?
They did smoke in the past, and there was some environmental exposure to certain things for work. And yes, and we did achieve good results stabilizing so that they don't deteriorate fast. So yes, again, I'm not saying it's a cure, but you can achieve great results and help reduce medication. And for me, that's a huge thing. Reducing medication means reducing inflammation, means having more energy.
Absolutely, I think us as doctors just overlook on all the natural things that can be done. We're not taught on all the natural things. It's such a pity. It takes me all these 20 years later, I'm learning about it.
Love it. I love what she does.
So we should have been taught 20 years ago in medical school, but nobody teaches us all these
Even
things.
Nutrition, right? How big is it?
Exactly. We only had like a small few hours on nutrition and nothing on breathing.
Few hours.
Maybe a few hours, maybe not.
Wow.
I can't even remember, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But all the nutrition stuff I've learned in the last few years, and all the breathing stuff in the last year that I've learned. Nothing before that. We learned to give medications, puffers, Ventolin, how many puffs, but never been taught how to slow down breathing and do breath holds.
And how logical is it, right? To save that carbon dioxide, right?
Yeah, that's it.
To calm the nervous system so that you don't go into that mode. And you do go into that mode when you have an asthma episode, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It is a stressful event for the body. So, but teaching people about what is happening, right, inside of them, physiologically and psychologically, that it's normal, it's okay.
Yeah.
You just work with that instead of medicating yourself and then medicating yourself for anxiety and then medicating yourself for blood sugar regulation and you get the polypharmacy. You know the story.
That's it.
You know the story.
I have been culprit for polypharmacy, but trying not to is the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. What about your naturopathy work? What sort of conditions do you treat with your naturopathy?
So that's a cool question, because if you go back to the roots of holistic naturopathic medicine, it's not the conditions that we treat, it's people that we work with, right? So, and you know, there are some people who can eat all the carbs in the world and they won't develop diabetes, right? And they won't put on weight because there's so many other things that are involved. Yeah, like all hormones speak to each other, right? You know, we can talk about endocrine conditions, but there are other things, there are emotions and stress, and you know, your adrenals will talk to your thyroid and everything, and insulin and melatonin. It's like a dance, right? Yeah. It's a beautiful dance in the body. And so it is a person. It is talking about what's happening in their life. Yes, there is symptoms. They always come with some sort of symptoms. That's why they show up, because they're in discomfort, in pain. Something is happening, and it can be symptomatic for some time for them, using, you know, herbs and nutraceuticals, you know, some minerals, and just to give them that stability, to bring them to some neutral point so that they can breathe and cope with further work. Yeah, so that's basically how it works. I don't really do a lot of testing. I do refer people for some tests to GPs, but have you heard of hair test analysis?
Yes,
the mineral. So this is something that probably the only test that I use that I think gives me some results to work with. Very, very tangible things to work with to correct that internal chemistry. It is about manipulating the body a little bit. I'm not very much for that. But for some individuals who are really, really lost, who don't have the energy, who are stressed to their eyeballs, and that can bring them to that neutral point, as I said before, and help them, give them that energy, energy molecules to start coping better, and then introduce further work, whether it's psychological work, whether it's whatever, even dietary changes in that situation, sometimes difficult. So we do it very slow. We start with the diet, like nutrition is everything, right? But we do it slowly. So for some people, they can, like that was me many moons ago when we did the GAPS diet for my younger son. And I just cleared my pantry. Old stuff out, new stuff in, right? That's me. That's my personality. Other people need to do steps by steps. Okay, we take this out, we put this in.
So just tell us about what the GAPS diet is. I've heard of it, but some listeners might not be familiar with the GAPS diet.
GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome. So it's developed by Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. She's in England now, I believe, and initially it was for people on the spectrum, or, you know, dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADD, autism, those things, and the premise is the gut-brain connection, you know, the microbiome in the gut, how it affects the brain, development, parasites, microbiome, how it affects the brain, you know, and so that's what it's all about. It's correcting this to help this.
That's amazing. But so what do you eat when you're on the GAPS diet?
It is pretty much low carb. However, they do allow things like sweetness, as in honey. Certain sweetness are allowed in some quantities, and it is important, I think, especially when working with children, young adults, just their physiology demands certain carbohydrates for energy. And so it's not completely like keto.
Not keto?
It's not a keto diet. So, but there is no grains. So it's low carb. There's no grains, none whatsoever, not even gluten-free grains.
So like
No rice, no quinoa,
like
nothing.
a paleo diet.
It is, yes, it is. Yeah, you can say so. Again, paleo, sometimes people get really, really specific. What is paleo? It's Paleolithic era. It's exactly this, it's not this. So it's, even paleo has different definitions nowadays, right? And keto, there is relaxed keto, there is this keto.
Yeah, that's it.
So different people mean different things
That's
now.
it.
But in essence, yes, it is grain-free, it's wholesome, whole foods,
Yep.
very heavy on using probiotic foods in the diet.
Yep.
So, and ideally making it yourself, but nowadays you can get so many nice, clean products, like, you know, beautiful sauerkraut and kimchi and then yogurts that are done properly. So I was taught to ferment my yogurt for 24 hours at a certain temperature, and sauerkraut should be like for a certain amount of time to get to that point where you have those bacteria, enough.
Wow.
So that when you have a teaspoon of sauerkraut juice, for example, you get the necessary amount of probiotic bacteria. It's always better than anything in the capsule.
That's it. And lots of animal products as well?
Yes. Yes, so it's bone broths, meats, But again, you can test. She teaches how to test what's good for, what's not good for you. It's worthwhile reading that.
Yeah, I just briefly looked into the GAPS diet, and I heard some kids, you have to change them to the GAPS diet, and they only get the bone broth, and that's how you start.
There are stages.
Okay.
So there is a first stage, intro stage, where you really, really strip it down to bone broth.
Yeah.
A bit of yogurt or whey from yogurt. It's harsh, but it lasts only 5-7 days.
Okay.
So you can cruise through that quite
quickly. Is that
quickly.
what you prescribe your patients with?
You know, people who bring their kids on the spectrum. Again, I don't like the labels, but it is what it is with certain symptomology. I do recommend that, and I see how very, very difficult it can be for a working parent. I was blessed because there was early in the life of my younger child, and I did have that time to focus on him and to devote myself pretty much fully to his recovery. And it was quite speedy. Again, maybe because I had the time, because he was young, but we had that brush with the spectrum with him.
And he improved a lot with the GAPS diet.
Oh, there's nothing left.
Great.
It was like a miracle.
Fantastic.
Again, I don't know why. Sometimes you have certain results, but you definitely get results.
Yeah.
People definitely, and I was part of that community for a few years when I was working with my family, and I saw it. You get to know people, not only online, but you really, really get to know people. And you get to know their lives, and I saw amazing results, like, you know, with people that I got to know closely as friends, and I could see what they achieved from being non-verbal to starting to speak, for example, right? But it is a long journey. It wasn't like 2 months. It was 2 years in the making.
Wow.
Huge dedication. And it is what it is. There is no judgment. You know, everyone is doing their best. I believe that. Every parent is doing their best with the resources that they have. But the information is out there, and it is possible to do that gradually. Or like I recommend start it on the school holidays. When you don't have those distractions, when you don't have to do lunch boxes and things
run
like
around
that.
and sports. And
at least see how it goes. Even within like 2-3 weeks, you can achieve certain results. With digestion, 100%.
Awesome.
I mean, our gut is quick. And also, just on that note about diets, because I know you're passionate about diets as well. The things that I come across a lot is people start doing all the diets and they get some results, but the thing is that we do need enzymes. We do need digestive juices to be able to digest things. And that's the biggest problem for me. Like, you can embark on any diet you want, but if the nervous system is not working great, you know, you're not going to achieve results, and people fall off the bandwagon, people, you know, develop other things. And that brings us back to breathing, because it is so good
working
for
on the
balancing the nervous system, right?
Calm them down and working on the mind.
Yes. And even the digestion, right? When you do diaphragmatic breathing,
that's it,
right? You massage all the internal organs, vagus nerve that innervates everything. So it's just so amazing.
That's amazing. So when you breathe properly, your diaphragm goes down and massages the internal organs and the gut and the liver.
Everything moves,
makes it
when you
all
breathe
work
like this.
Properly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And most people, well, you've been doing that for a bit shorter time.
Yeah.
But what I see is that they breathe so heavily with their chest.
Yes.
And sometimes, well, you have this table too, so we have a table in the middle of the room, and they put them on the table.
Yeah.
And I put a heavy book on them.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes they can't even move that. That action is lost, those muscles.
They're not using their belly for breathing.
And what I do, I stand behind them and press on their shoulders.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have to press really hard on those pecs. Yeah.
Oh, because they're moving the chest too much.
Yes, they push into my hands so much, and it takes sometimes 5-10 minutes to kind of get them to relax, to trust. To relax.
Yeah.
You know, drop the shoulders. Imagine your head, your neck is relaxed, and it's
and do they learn to breathe with their belly after? Or it takes a bit of time?
Well, the longest we did about 20 minutes. Normally, I'll leave like 10 minutes at the end of the session to show them how to correct. But I did go over time a few times because I really wanted them to get that sensation.
The belly breathing. Yeah. Wow.
So it's amazing.
That's awesome. I love your work, Julia.
Thank you.
That's great.
I love your work.
That's awesome. So I just want to touch on some practical tips for our listeners about healthy lifestyle. What's your take on, give us a few tips on what's your take on having a healthy lifestyle to not just live normally, but to thrive and survive and
it's an interesting question, seriously, because sometimes I want to say all the things that I want to say.
And
sometimes people get so caught up in this healthy life idea, and they chase that and they forget to live. However, I will say a few things. So, first things first, educate yourself about breathing. People do get into a dysfunctional pattern just because of the bombardment from the environment, the toxins,
the phone,
the stress in life. So it is important to do that, and all the things that eat when you're hungry. Like only eat when you're hungry. You cannot digest anything when you're not hungry. The juices are not there. So that's the thing. And sunlight. Sunlight in the morning. Between sunrise and 10 a.m. so important. It resets your circadian rhythm. And as I said before, all hormones, they talk to each other, so that will create this hormonal cascade, this beautiful work that needs to be done by your body. And that's the only way to do that. That's why we have the environment, that's why we're on this earth. We have our beautiful star that supplies us with the heat and light. And it's not about heat, it's more about broad spectrum light. We are with this fluorescent light all day long. It's not the same wavelengths, and it's not conducive to health long term. So we do need to get some 15-20 minutes at least. Get your cup of air, go for a walk. It's like you can fit it in, even with shift workers. I'm like, have your morning break. Because everyone's got breaks at work, right? Do get them. Smokers are legal, but you can get some sunlight break instead of smoking break.
That's it.
Right? So just those little things, Eat when you're hungry, eat enough, don't overeat, get your sunlight, educate yourself about breathing.
So easy, everything's free.
And movement.
Movement,
just
exercise.
park as far as you can from
Yeah.
the entrance to the supermarket.
Yeah.
Or like even on the street somewhere.
Yeah.
Carry those things, that's your weightlifting, right? You
Yeah.
don't need to go to the gym, you can just do that.
Yeah. Carry the shopping.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
those things.
You've written 2 books. Tell me about the books that you've written.
Oh yes, the book's there on the table. Should have taken it out. So the first
okay.
one is kids' book. Again, because I started with Buteyko for doing work for Braceless Choice, and I worked with children primarily, so from the age of 5 to 15. And for those younger ones, they don't have that long attention span. They want to play more than just sit and listen to my instructions. And when they leave the room, they're off with their parents. And some parents are really good with, creating some visuals and engaging them. And some parents are not equipped with that.
They're just busy, maybe.
And maybe they're busy, right? But we're all different.
Exactly.
We all have different skill sets for life. So I thought that there is nothing in the market, none whatsoever, for them to engage them into breathing exercises. So it's called 4 Journeys. It's basically, there's some information for parents at the start. I think it's very important to read that, why we do that. And 4 exercise, so 4 visuals. 4 visuals like little stories. And then Erica Macarinelli, so she's the designer, the illustrator. She created beautiful illustrations. So you can use that. How I encourage people is you can do it kinesthetically, like there is air balloons journey, and the child can trace the picture so that they can engage the body as well as their visual perception. Or they can just look, because it's so bright, so colorful, so beautifully done.
Great.
And they can just look at the pictures and do the exercises instead of just sit down and do this.
So it's a children breathing book.
Yes, exercises for functional breathing.
For children.
For children.
And you've got another book coming up very soon. Tell us about that one.
So it's called The Breathing Coach, and Your Breathing Coach, and it is basically a distillation of everything that I've read over the years. Everything that I've done, and put into a concise kind of manual of, step by step,
how to
take yourself from dysfunctional breathing to functional breathing. From a lot of inflammation to low inflammation. And because, as I said before to you, before we started doing this podcast, people would come to me and I would refer them to certain books, James Nestor's, Patrick McEwen. And they're big books, they're great books, I love them, I love reading. And those people love reading too. However, they would come back and they would say to me, Julia, it's a big book and it's so nice. Can you just tell me in a nutshell, just in a couple of sentences, what I do? I'm like, okay. So this is the book.
Just before lunch, I saw a patient and she had coughing all the time, dysfunctional breathing. She can't hold her breath for very long. And I wish I had your book, then I can tell her to read your book. I've been
read you.
It's
coming out end of July. Hopefully end of July.
Great. So I told her to go to Buteyko YouTube channel and Oxygen Advantage YouTube channel and look into it. But it's not personalized to a person. If I had.
But also, to have something offline. Even, you can sit down, because I don't encourage the use of devices in the evening, for example. Again, for sleep.
That's it.
And you can just have that book. And it's going to be ebook and an actual book as well. But to have that reference, and it's only like 70 pages. So 2 pages a day in a month, you're going to be fine with functional breathing, right?
Great.
That's the idea.
Tell our listeners where people can find you.
So you can find me, it's oxygenrevolution.com.au, that's my website. I update it regularly. There is a new webinar coming up about light is medicine, so feel free to join. It's on the 22nd of August. And all the updates are there, and social media, Instagram, oxygen_revolution. That's me.
Thank you, Julia. That's amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming to my clinic in Montana, and we do a live podcast. That's great.
Yeah, great experience.
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you all the listeners for tuning in. Until next time, we have another guest on how to do good lifestyle. Thank you for tuning in to Prescribing Lifestyle.